what I think we're seeing, and our average size deal jumped up. And I think it was because the only businesses that were selling were the ones that were established, that were making a lot of money, and that people felt safe about buying. And perhaps they thought they were getting a bargain buying something that was still making money during the pandemic.
In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and Jessica.
Welcome back, everybody. And we are here at the end of Q1 2022. I can't believe this year's flying by already, Jessica.
I know, it's crazy. You tell me. I mean, I feel like we were just doing our prediction show, and now here we are recapping the first quarter already.
And some of those predictions are becoming true, and some of them are a little bit more problematic, I think, still.
Yeah. Overall, I think we did a decent job. But I mean, so far, the quarter flew by. And now we know, sitting and looking at our data, why it flew by so fast is because there's so many deals getting done. I think all of us were so busy.
Yeah, we were very busy, and I'm just looking at some of the deals right now, and it is crazy. I mean, we are up for some of the offices. We're up about 5% year over year, and there are more deals, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we are seeing that as well. It's an interesting marketplace. The banks haven't backed off yet either, right?
Yeah, no, it's a very, very interesting marketplace. There's still a lot of money available, whether it's on the financing side or in the investment side, when you're looking at the PE and up market a little bit. But it's still a really hot market. It's still a seller's market. We're going to get into some of the data, but why don't, before we get into the data, Andy, why don't we share everybody about, a little bit about who we are and what we track? Because I don't think we talk about the Transworld network enough. Maybe that'll set the stage for where we're getting all these stats from and the deal volume.
Yeah, I mean, there's over 200 offices out there throughout the world, and they are reporting their solds to us. We have over 800 people on the ground out there selling businesses, thousands of businesses for sale at any one time, and under contract, probably over 1,000 of those at any one time. So we're always tracking what's going on in the marketplace. And we've been working on our CRM program / data probably for, I think it was our just 6th year with this current CRM.
Yep.
So we have some really solid data now that is coming forward. And we have some nerd statisticians that are amongst our network that have really dove in, and they're doing such a great job. Very appreciative.
And it's very helpful for our brokers and our franchisees, but it's also helpful for the clients they serve. So we do some of the major data points that we track, and there's a lot of them, but maybe we'll just talk about the ones that are relevant to our listeners and to the business owners. But we track the number of deals that we sell when they're sold. And we do this instantly, which is why, we're sitting here the first week of April and we're already able to do our Q1 2022 closing report. So we track the number of deals that we sell. We track the average sold price, the average SCE, the average multiple to SCE. We track deals by category in terms of industry. And like I said, all of this is instantly available to us. So we're going to plan on doing these kind of quarterly update shows and share some of these metrics with our listeners.
Yeah, and we're actually going to take some time and actually talk to the people who are on the street. And I did go around and travel around a bit, and we were signing books, which we'll talk about. We're going to have a book signing coming up, Jessica and I, in May in Denver, and we're going to do a dual book signing. But I was up in New York and Boston. I got to speak to the folks up in the Northeast about what's going on there. And as COVID crisis lifts and you see the mask mandates lift, you're seeing those businesses return and things are happening fast. People are trying to buy. You'll hear some of the snippets, but people are trying to buy as things are swinging back up. And so I think we're seeing that in the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's dive into the numbers a little bit and what we saw. I think the first big thing that we want to talk about is the number of deals getting done. So if you've been listening to the show for the last year or two, I mean, even the amount of deals we were getting done in the pandemic impressed Andy and I. We definitely did not see that coming when we first entered the pandemic. But I think what we did see coming even more is deals are up again. So we're up 29% in number of closed deals done from Q1 2022 versus Q1 2021, which is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, 30%. I mean, that is an incredible deal. And we are seeing it tick up, right? So 2020, we probably lost about a good quarter, and some parts of the country lost a little bit more as far as deal volume. There were still people trying to sell on the downslide and people trying to get bargains at that time. So it didn't slide off that much, but we are coming up to getting higher. We are now at a pace more than 2019. Mm-hmm. So that's what's kind of surprising, and up 30% from Q1 of 21 to Q1 one of 22 is really kind of shocking. And it's good. I mean, I like to see businesses trading like this.
Yeah. It's really good metrics. It's good numbers. It's another indication that it is a seller's market, like we've been talking about, that there's so many buyers on the street that we are able to get these deals done. So that's a really good metric. The next metric we should talk about, Andy, we've got to go back and redo some of our podcast episodes when we talk about 2 times, right?
Yeah, because the average SDE to multiple has snuck up. It has gone over 3, and this is a big deal too. And I think again, it is still a seller's market. There's still a lot of money on the street. It is highly competitive for some of the businesses that we are selling. And so because and Transworld again is selling more and more deals, and we're selling larger deals than we ever have. So I think what we're seeing is some of the quality and quantity of earnings are driving up the multiples, but competition is as well.
Yeah. And we'll get a little bit into the industries and industry multiples and things like that. But it is a big deal. I mean, I've been in this business for almost 10 years. Andy, you've been in it for over 25 now, right? And neither of us have seen an average multiple over two times, right?
Yeah. And one of the stats is that the average sale price has come down a little bit.
Yeah.
And we think the reason for that, and anecdotally, we're trying to look through the stats to see if this is true. But, during the pandemic, what happened to the small businesses, the businesses that were marginal, the businesses that were hanging on, that were tough to sell anyway, they either went out of business or got PPP and decided to hang on. Mm-hmm. And what I think we're seeing, and our average size deal jumped up. And I think it was because the only businesses that were selling were the ones that were established, that were making a lot of money, and that people felt safe about buying. And perhaps they thought they were getting a bargain buying something that was still making money during the pandemic. What we're seeing now is the businesses that are back, like the restaurants, like we sold 3 hair salons this week in Florida, and we laughed. We were like, hair salons are back, and who was buying a hair salon in 2020, right?
No one. And we're seeing 2 fitness. We're closing on 2 fitness deals this week. And same thing, like no one was touching fitness. And I can say from our office, we've definitely seen that it was almost like some of the smaller businesses and the ones that were most affected to the pandemic, they either went out or they did this wait and see mentality. And a lot of the new businesses we're listing for sale right now are those wait and see mentalities where they've recovered and now they feel safe to go on the market. So, I mean, yes, our average price per deal has gone down, but it's actually, I'd say it's back to normal, right? So it was almost like it spiked to like last year, and now it's come back and normalized a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think you're going to see that. Like, let's go over to top 10 industries, because fitness happens to be one of those top 10 in the first quarter that we sold. And let's talk about the multiple in each, because even though we're at 3.0, whatever it was, that doesn't mean all industries. And that
Yes.
certainly doesn't mean all size businesses are going to sell for a 3-time multiple. In fact, I'm having this argument with a couple of sellers right now who we feel are overpriced. And we will do a show based on some of the stats that we had from 2021 that is showing that businesses that are overpriced don't sell.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have plenty of data to back that up. And just as a reminder, before we jump into these industries, we're going to talk about stats and multiples and things like that. If you haven't listened to our last few valuation shows, we highly recommend to go back. They should just be a couple episodes back from here, but that's where we explain what SDE, seller's discretionary earnings, is, why multiples matter, and things like that. So let's jump in. So we're going to talk about the top 10 industries and top 10 by deal volume. So number of deals sold, not by the multiples. So the first one, and we're not a restaurant broker, but restaurants are a huge segment of the business brokerage industry. So restaurants are always in the top 2 or 3, and restaurants were number 1. And actually for restaurants, we typically see lower multiples because there are in those mix. There's a lot of restaurants that have gone out. So the average multiple this quarter on the restaurants was 1.65, which is actually pretty strong when you consider, some of these asset only type sales.
Yeah. 1.5 is probably pretty typical. 1.65 you're seeing now. There is a lot of people getting into the restaurant business again. Like I said, I think this, as well as fitness and beauty, was hit hardest and perhaps struggling still with some of the labor issues and supply chain issues. So it's not surprising that a lot of them are trading, but the small ones are back and they're trading. And what you're seeing, and I think we've seen this in several cities. We're talking about this in New York. We were talking about it in Boston, that there are very few spaces open, even though, there's been this great resignation and maybe the office spaces are opening somewhat, not the retail spaces. They're being taken up. And so if you want in on a restaurant, you might have to buy one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, and it's always, look, buying a second generation restaurant space, we have a whole discussion just on this, is almost always more affordable than building it out from scratch. So it's always a very popular segment of the market for buyers.
And these days, and we know this because we deal with some franchisors that have to build out brand new spaces, they are having trouble getting refrigeration, getting stainless steel tables, getting the contractors to put in the electric and the plumbing. So it's no wonder that we're selling tons of restaurants at good prices.
Yeah, right. And actually, speaking of contractors, what's our number 2 top industry?
Construction. And of course it is. I mean, construction has been on fire all over the country. And I think we're going to continue to see it all over the country. Sure, people are moving to places like Florida and Texas and perhaps Idaho, but I think we will continue to see it in cities as well. And I think secondary cities, because people have the ability to work from home, you're going to see secondary cities and rural areas being able to have new projects come up out of the ground. So all the construction related businesses we saw, and you're seeing some very solid multiples.
Yeah. 2.65 times. So very strong, ahead of, we were saying usually the average is 2 times across all industries. It's higher right now, but 2.65 is a really strong multiple. I also think too, Andy, this industry might be more susceptible to the seller tsunami that we had talked about previously. You see a lot of, at least the businesses we're working with, a lot of construction and trade-owned companies are owned by older owners that are approaching retirement. It's a really big segment of the industry. So I think this is going to continue to be a very strong category and a lot of businesses for sale in this area for the next few years.
Yes. And you saw the average SDE hovering around $300,000. So that's a pretty solid, even with some of the small businesses we sell and some of the M&A businesses, some of the M&A stuff is not in here. So that's, we take that out to kind of normalize that. So you're looking at businesses between maybe, 0 and $1 million of SDE. So a $300,000 average is a pretty solid base of businesses coming to the market.
Yeah, that industry has made some good money over the last couple of years, although they have faced challenges like staffing and supply chain issues like a lot of others. So moving on to number 3 is beauty and personal care. And this is like our salons, our spas. I mean, it's actually really heartening to see that in this top 10, the 3 of the most affected industries from the pandemic are in here and selling for fair multiples. So we're seeing a 1.87 times in that industry right now, which is about average for this category.
Yeah, it is about average. And you are seeing that we sold a lot of businesses that might have had a very low SDE. It was almost like little less than $100,000 of the average SDE. And I think, again, I think people are speculating to get into this industry as it was basically crushed. So you're seeing the upswing in it very quickly and people looking to buy into the beauty and personal care business. So that's great. And speaking of a business that's on fire, the automotive business, and we are seeing some very solid multiples. And it's funny because I've actually had people call me looking for the automotive business and repair.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if it's related to the vehicle sale market too, right? Because it's not like you can just go out, even if you want to buy a brand new vehicle right now. I mean, we just had to buy a new one and I think we bought it in Florida actually and had to have it shipped out to Colorado. But so people are spending more money on repair because they have to stick with what they have. But solid SDEs, again, like these companies are very profitable. So about an average of 250,000 SDEs and almost a 3 times multiple in automotive.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe it's that high in automotive. I think this is above average, and absolutely people have to hold on to their cars. I actually just got a new car too. I was hanging on to my car and I really felt like it was time for me to move on. I don't know, for almost 10 years. I'm one of those guys that likes to drive it until the wheels fall off. And I had to get my car slightly used and I had to get it over 500 miles away and had it shipped. And I bought it sight unseen, which was crazy to me.
We did the same thing. We bought ours out of Tampa. People are doing crazy things right now, but automotive repair is really benefiting from that entire market shift right now.
And another industry that I love to see that is sneaking back up into the top 5, or it is number 5 basically, is manufacturing, which is great to hear.
It is. I mean, talk about supply chain issues. This industry probably faced the most supply chain issues. So to see them being traded, and again at fair multiples, just over 3 times. So, and to remember everybody, we're talking. This is small business, Main Street market deals, less than $1 million in earnings. So to see a strong multiple like that is really encouraging for this industry.
And they're making money, and a lot of these job shops are being tapped by large manufacturers because I happen to sit on a board of directors of a company that's doing manufacturing that was importing things. The cost of containers has, I think, quadrupled, or it's absolutely insane. So they are looking for local small manufacturers to do some of these parts.
Yeah. Yeah. So another great industry. Moving on to number 6 is a larger category in terms of generality, but it's the medical related businesses. So it could be doctor's office. It could be dental practices. Sometimes we also have more holistic medical practices that are sold within this category. Very strong multiples in this category though, right?
Yeah, if you want to know, we've been talking about 1s and 2s and maybe one 3 so far, or basically 2 3s so far. Why is it at 3 if you're talking about 1s and 2s on some of the other ones? Well, medical is at 5.3, and it's a hot industry. A lot of the medical businesses see being sold is in the senior care industry, and that is being highly sought after.
Yeah. But also what we're seeing too is if we look at the average SDE, so looking at profitability plus owner's discretionary earnings, it's almost 450,000 in this industry, which goes back to Andy and I have talked a lot about that. Your valuation is driven by the qualitative factors of the business, but also the quantity of your earnings. And as the average earnings go up, so does the multiple. They're related. So looking at an industry where the average SDE is 450,000, we would expect to see higher multiples in that versus say restaurants.
Yeah. And tied with medical is something that's related to medical is cleaning. And we're seeing, of course, the cleaning industry exploded during COVID. And a lot of people, I saw all these companies coming in, they come down, spray into your offices. And so I think we saw a lot of startups that have probably gone away. And so we're seeing some of these businesses that kind of lasted through COVID. They probably had a bump. They probably made money. And now it's time to exit. Those baby boomers are now, okay, made my money in that little bump. It's time for me to exit. So we are seeing in the cleaning industry, and which is pretty typical, under 2, about a 1.8. And, again, this is office cleaning and residential cleaning and other janitorial type businesses.
Yeah. So people have been spending a lot of time in their homes, right? And we've talked about construction and how that's gone crazy, and, cleaning too probably has benefited from that. But the next category is lawn and landscaping. And they've definitely benefited in a bump in the industry as people really over the last 2 years decided to revamp their backyards and try and create that like vacation oasis. So it's very strong industry. Again, we're seeing just under 3 times, 2.9 times in terms of the multiple to SDE for businesses being sold right now.
Yeah, and the SDE is always pretty big in this industry. It's over $250,000, 261 to be exact. And this also does include a lot of landscapers in places where it snows, also do snow removal. Some of them make more money from snow removal than they do inside of, as they said, the white stuff makes them more money than the green stuff. Yeah. And so they are, out there. And a lot of those are recurring revenue kind of things. They have contracts for the winter where they are selling their services or being on standby. But, again, this is usually farther up on the, we're always trading the landscaping businesses.
Yeah, it's another big segment of the market. But also you just mentioned recurring revenue is another thing we've talked about in valuation is, recurring revenue is something that's highly desirable from buyers. So it does push those multiples up a little bit too. So that's why we see a little bit higher in that industry than some others. Agreed. So you teased this one, but it was funny when people were asking me what's the industry that was most affected by this pandemic, and everybody would expect me to answer restaurants, and I said fitness. And it was, I think, almost the worst timing of the pandemic for fitness. I think we had a topic that we talked about fitness where we had this explosion of these unique niche fitness concepts really leading up to the pandemic. And then all of them essentially had to close. And then when they did come back, we all know who were going to these gyms, what types of restrictions they were facing. So we saw almost none of these deals getting done over the last couple of years. And to see them creeping back up into the top 10 is really encouraging, no matter what the multiple is. Yeah,
the multiple is small, but I think what you're seeing is, again, some of these places were just flat out closed. And you have gym equipment sitting around, and some of these small niche kind of players couldn't hold on. And so as, again, landlords are running out of space. So if you want to open up your fitness, and it is back in, everybody wants to lose the COVID-19, and 19 wasn't the number of the virus, it was how many pounds they gained. And they want to lose that, they want to get back into shape, get back out there. And so you're seeing the fitness industry rebound very nicely. And because of that, the deals we have sell. And because they don't have much of a history right now, they're selling at a low multiple, almost below a 1. So it's, that will bounce back very quickly.
It will bounce back. And as we start to see the SDEs creep back up and stuff, I think it's just encouraging that they're being sold again, right? That there is the marketplace for them. So So
yeah, if you want to bargain, this is it. You want
I
to get
know,
in the
right?
fitness
Yeah.
industry.
If you're a buyer listening to the show and you're like, hey, what can I roll up right now and turn for a great ROI in a couple of years, fitness is a good contender. So rounding out our top 10, we have advertising. And I saw this on here and it started to make perfect sense. But advertising is, it could be a lot of different things, but really in the world today, it's advertising agencies. And a lot of them benefited from this digital surge of advertising over the last couple of years, where a lot of companies were first forced to go online if they weren't, or do some type of unique and different advertising as our world changed. So strong multiples, 3.11 in terms of an average multiple in the advertising industry right now.
Yeah, and some other strong multiples. Why was it over 3.0? Because we're seeing strong multiples in businesses that have great SDEs. So the distribution industry, almost a $400,000 SDE and an average of 3.91, so almost 4 times. And that's pretty typical for healthy distribution companies are selling for 4 times, even sub-$1 million SDEs.
Yeah. So we're just going to call out a few different industries that we think have impressive multiples or things that we want to be aware of. But, Andy, you talked about distribution. Machine shops are also very strong right now. We're seeing almost a 5 multiple there. Machine shops are usually highly desirable for buyers because there's not a ton of them available. Average SDE is about average right now, 115,000, but really strong multiples in that category.
Yep. And of course, internet related, which is basically online portals and businesses and online retailers selling for almost a 4-time multiple. Again, even sub-$1 million, 3.77 time multiple.
Yeah. Oh, and another industry I just noticed still crushing it is insurance. So insurance agencies have been highly desirable for a number of years now. Average multiple 4.3.
Yeah. So, and even some things like the recreation business, we are seeing the recreation business exploded during COVID. People wanted to be outside. So you're seeing almost a 4.4 multiple for some recreation businesses that sold.
Yeah. And then we've got a few categories where, they're so small or so industry niche that we only sell maybe 1 or 2 a quarter. But they're really great examples of what earnings can do and how it can affect a sale price. So we sold a business in personal services with about $1 million in SDE, and that traded for 6.8 times multiple, really proving that, quantity really does drive the multiple sometimes.
Yeah, it does. Again, back to the end, same thing with the medical related businesses. As the SDE sneaks up, so do the multiples. And the medical businesses, again, highly sought after, and especially some of those things that are dealing with seniors, because we are seeing the aging of the baby boomers, and there's going to be a huge marketplace there.
So overall, really good quarter, Andy. What do you think?
It was a great quarter. I think I'm hoping for 3 more just like it. And I think what we're seeing also is, as Transworld matures, and we've been doing this for 12 years as a franchise now, and we've been doing it for 40 years, almost 50 years as a company. And as the business brokerage industry gets more exposure out there in the world, and it becomes more of the norm to enter this marketplace. And I think that's going to continue out there in the world. As that happens, this is going to be the place to do business. I mean, and Transworld probably being the leader in that, is that more and more deals are coming through this marketplace, and we're going to have better and better statistics out there.
Yeah. The age of information sharing is definitely upon us for business brokerage. And it's just going to empower our buyers and sellers to be more informed about what they're entering when we're doing these deals. So like we mentioned before, we are going to be doing these on a quarterly basis. We'll be releasing them 1 or 2 weeks right after the quarter closes as we get our data. But we would love to hear from you if you have any questions, follow up, or what you would love to see included on these market report shows. You can always visit us at thedealboardpodcast.com.
Great episode.
Yeah. And we've got a few more commentaries coming from our Northeast offices. So we hope you enjoy that. And we've got a couple listings of the week and a deal of the week.
Excellent. Let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage and mergers and acquisitions firm with over 500 brokers in nearly 200 offices worldwide. Transworld's team handles thousands of business sales every year. To be connected with a qualified business broker or learn more about the buying and selling process, visit tworld.com/the deal board or call 888-719-9098.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. And we are talking about the first quarter of 2022. And we have a very special guest, Jonathan Smith from Live Oak Bank. And Live Oak is one of our partner banks. And we do a lot of business with Live Oak. And Live Oak's been doing a lot of business this first quarter and last year. And we just wanted to catch up with Jonathan and ask him, what have you been seeing out there?
Yeah, sure. So, as you know, we're the top SBA lender last year, and we're kind of rolling into this year, firing on all cylinders. Q1, definitely a little slower at the beginning of the year. I think people taking a break over the holidays. So the first couple of weeks of January, not a ton of activity, but it's picked right back up. Still closing a lot of loans. The acquisition space is still hot. Seeing a lot of new listings that brokers are sending us for review, and a lot of borrowers still out there.
Yeah, and so interest rates just inched up after a long time. So how's that going to affect what's going on out there?
It's certainly one of the first questions borrowers ask now, because it's all over the news and people are certainly focused on it. One thing that Live Oak Bank offers that a lot of SBA lenders don't is we can fix it for a period of time. We offer a 3 and a 5 year fix, so they at least can get some protection there. Most SBA lenders, or I should say a lot of SBA lenders, do that quarterly adjust, which in a rising interest rate environment, that certainly is going to give some people a little hesitation. But we've been here before. We'll get through it, and the rates are still historically low when you look at it in that context.
Yeah, I was here back in the 90s, and rates for SBA loans were over 10.
So exactly. And we're nowhere near that.
Yeah, we're nowhere near that. So it's certainly a great time to borrow money still. But interestingly enough, when you looking at deals and you're valuing, we just did a series on valuation, and we did speak to some banks. What are you seeing out there as far as how are you handling 2020? Yeah. Are you looking at 2021 and saying that was too big of a year for some people, and you're maybe normalizing it for 2022 going forward? What's the thought process?
Yeah, in some cases, we have to look at 2021 and say, all right, how much of this was a COVID bump? Because I think for the businesses that are being sold, at least in my experience, I'm seeing more of the COVID bump than the negative impacts of COVID. Certainly 2020, a lot of businesses were impacted, but they've come out of that. So if there is a significant jump, we do have to make some sort of adjustments. We have to have that deeper dive and have the conversation of what was impacting that increase and how is it going to be impacted in the future. 2020, I think, is becoming less and less of a concern the further away we get from it, especially those ones that rebounded, and it seems like they're continuing on. So we got to look at 18, 19. How did it get impacted in 20? What 2021 looked like, and we have to make some adjustments and get creative, but it hasn't been detrimental to any transactions, or not as many as one might think.
And I'm sure first quarter 2022 is super important.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, making sure that they're continuing that momentum, or has it normalized, and what does the cash flow look in that regard?
Right. Sure. But either way, should be a really busy year, right?
We're expecting it to be, yeah, for sure.
Jonathan, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, of course, what's the best way to do that?
Best way, you can email me, jonathan.smith@liveoak.bank. My number is 603-812-8278.
Jonathan, I really appreciate you coming in today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is? It's time for our deal of the week.
Deal of the week.
Sold. Welcome back, everyone, to the Deal Board. And for our Deal of the Week this week, we have Rusty Fisher. He's one of our business brokers in the Transworld Business Advisors office in Houston, Texas. Rusty, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jessica. It's great to be here.
Well, congratulations. You recently closed a deal. Tell us a little bit about the business you just sold.
Perfect. On Monday, we closed a florist with real estate, which was a unique transaction. When I listed the business, it hit the market, and 6 days later, we were under contract. And this is a business that had been in the area for 50 plus years and was on the second generation of the family running the business. So it created some unique challenges, because the real estate was actually owned by the estate of the parents of my seller. So we ran into some unique challenges with that aspect.
Yeah.
But it was a fun transaction to work on.
Yeah, unique challenges, but things that, Transworld's uniquely positioned to handle. So 6 days on the market, you must have had a pretty anxious buyer. Tell us about the individual who purchased the business.
The buyer is actually an owner of 30 florists around the country. And so they've got a roll-up strategy, and they're vertically integrated, so they can come into a business like this one and change the cost structure of the existing business, and make it more profitable. So they were, and they were very interested in real estate. So that was one of the big appeals to it.
Nice. That's what we call, for the listeners, that's what we call strategic acquisition, right? So we've got a strategic buyer that has a strategy, and we've said on the show before, they can execute these deals fairly quickly if it's the right one for them.
Absolutely. It was, and he had already started refinancing the real estate, which this was an all cash transaction, but he was going to finance it after the fact. And frankly, if the housing market, when we started this process, hadn't been so intense, we would have closed quicker, but it took every bit of the 6 weeks to close because of the title company and the survey, because everybody was so backed up.
Yeah. So it's tough right now with all those vendors. So Rusty, tell us a little bit about the financials. Obviously, we have real estate with this business too, but what did it sell for? What were the earnings? Any key takeaways?
Sure. The business was throwing off about $100,000 a year in seller's discretionary earnings. And so we ended up pricing the business at $155,000, and the real estate was priced at $225,000. The real estate was very tough to find comps, because in this particular area of Texas, there just weren't any comps. So we were very happy. It was pretty close. It was a little less than 10% of ask.
Nice. That's great. And like you mentioned already, it was an all cash deal, which is great for the sellers. So it got done fairly quickly after all the inspections and everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Rusty, if someone is looking to buy or sell a business in the Houston area, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. My phone number is 713-516-0116. My email is rusty.fisher, FISHER, @tworld.com.
Awesome. And we'll drop that into the show notes too for listeners that are interested in the Houston area. Rusty, congrats again on the deal, and thanks for sharing it with us.
Thank you very much.
Hey, we're back, and we're talking about the first quarter of 2022 being in the rearview mirror already. And we're just talking to some of our most prolific brokers out there in the world. We got Tom Gesimondo from Transworld Business Advisors of Brooklyn. And Tom, what are you seeing out there? You have an interesting take.
Yeah. So what we're seeing is in the restaurant business, they were under pressure where they were having trouble hiring people. I actually have a pizza place that's been around for 40 years. And for the first time in 40 years was closed on 1 day a week. I spoke to them a few weeks ago. They are now gearing up. They're going back to 7 days a week. And we're seeing that sort of, move throughout the whole industry where people are finding the staff that they need, and they're looking forward to the future.
Yeah, we did a show at the beginning of the year talking about the predictions, and we did predict that the staffing issues would somewhat subside. And so it's great to hear that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, out on the street, you can feel it, at the root level. So I'm really optimistic about this year.
Great. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Hey, we're back, and we're talking 2022 first quarter, and I have Marc Lazarus from Transworld Business Advisors of North Jersey. And Marc we were talking off camera, and Marc said, it's getting busy because the sellers are coming out.
Yeah, it's been an amazing first quarter. The listings are just piling up. Every week I turn around, I'm getting a new listing. A lot in the food industry, pizzerias, delis, a lot of Main Street stuff, but other stuff is also coming in. So I think post-COVID, the people that were holding off, they're like, let's go, open up the floodgates and a lot of listings.
Yeah, so those baby boomers are finally coming.
I think the beginning of the rush is here.
All right. Well, you heard it here. Thanks, Marc.
You're welcome.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for listing of the week.
Welcome back, everybody. And this week on the deal board for the listing of the week, we have Quoc Pham. He's from our Transworld Business Advisors office in Houston and one of the business brokers there. Quoc, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jessica. A pleasure being here.
So you specialize in a specific industry, and you've got a listing that you want to share with us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I kind of specialize in selling dry cleaners and laundromats. So the listing I'm going to talk about today is a coin-operated laundromat. It's located here in Houston. It's located in a area that you normally won't see a laundromat. It's in an affluent area with higher income, higher valued homes. But it's done well over the 13 years. It was established 13 years ago. The current owner bought this in 2019. He moved here with his family, husband, wife, and daughter from Kansas City. And, when they first got here, they were looking for a business that was easy to run and in a safe area for his wife to run. Mm-hmm. So they agreed to purchase this business. Long story short, though, they're going through a divorce. So they've liquidated all of their assets. This is the last business they've got to liquidate. And so it's on the market. It's doing very well. This year's projected to do revenues better than pre-COVID numbers. So better than 2019 numbers. Yeah. Annual gross revenues are $360,000 with sales discretionary earnings of $139,000.
That's great. That's a great business. Really, really good cash flow and earnings. So I'm going to throw a question at you, Cole, but you specialize in laundromats and dry cleaners. Why do you find they're good businesses for buyers and particularly new business buyers?
Yeah, so the coin-operated laundromat, anytime I have a listing for coin-operated laundromats, I anticipate the phones ringing off the hook. They're very popular because they're easy to run, very easy to manage. You can have one employee at the business during operating hours. And if you ever have equipment problems, you can just put an out of order sign on the door and, owners can always handle that later on. So it's easy to have absentee or semi-absentee for a business owner.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. So tell us a little bit about what's the asking price for this business.
So we're listing this at $269,000, which is an extremely good price. It's a less than 2 multiple. So generally these go for 3 to 4 multiple.
Wow.
And so seller wants to sell quickly, so we've priced it aggressively. On top of that, to give buyers confidence in the deal, seller is willing to offer 50% seller financing.
Wow. All right. That is a really good deal. I don't even know if that's going to stay on the market by the time this hits the show. That is a great deal. But hopefully it's still on the market in the next couple of weeks when this goes on the show. How would people get in touch with you if they want to buy this, or if they just want to talk to you further about this niche industry that you focus in?
Yeah, definitely. If anyone has an interest in this laundromat, give me a call. This one doesn't work, I've got 3 or 4 other laundromats I'm happy to talk about. But the best way to reach me is on my cell phone at 832-758-7756. Or you can email me at qpham@tworld.com. That's QPHAM@tworld.com.
Awesome. And we'll drop that into the show notes too. So anybody listening, you can just click down the show notes and find Quo's email and phone number there. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to have you back for some of these skills that you have.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, we're back and we're talking first quarter 2022 and things that are booming is we're talking to Eric Straus and we were talking off camera, and New York City's booming.
New York City is really coming back. People had suggested New York was going to be dead because of the pandemic. It is not the case. The tourist buses are back. Tourists are back. Businesses are back. It's really remarkable. And so if you're waiting to buy a business, it's time to do it now because things are coming back pretty hard, pretty fast.
Yeah. Even anecdotally, walking around, and I was walking around about 7 months ago, a lot of empty stores, but it seems like they've all been released and there's some new businesses in there.
No question. One, there are a couple of silver linings of the pandemic. I think one of the silver linings is landlords are a little bit easier to work with now than they were a couple of years ago.
There you go. So it sounds like a good time to get in and buy a business.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Hey, we're back and we are talking end of first quarter 2022, and we have a lot of things going on. I'm here with Joe Hertz from Transworld Business Advisors. 5 towns, very busy area out there in Jamaica, Queens. So tell me what you see out there. I know it's still buyers are they want to acquire, right?
Sure. I mean, in my office, we focus on some of the larger deals, on the strategics. And what we're seeing is people are still very liquid with all the COVID stimulus and everything that came out. There's a lot of liquidity. Interest rates are low. And acquirers are acquisitive, if that's a word.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah. So, and money's still cheap. It might be going up soon. So people are kind of they want to get on it. They want to deploy that capital.
Yep. And that's especially for businesses where it's absentee owner, where, there's a significant amount of seller discretionary earnings. So they're profitable. And in specific industries where, the investment groups are really focused on those industries.
Yeah. And I heard you're looking in daycare and what else?
So we're very active in childcares and home health care, or really anything that's medical related, and some real estate services as well. We recently had a great acquisition with Sam Curcio from the Transworld Manhattan office of a commercial cleaning company. So that's a hot area. So there's a lot going on.
Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Hey, we're back and we're talking 2022, the first quarter results. And I am with Bob Dunphy from Transworld Business Advisors of New York City. And Bob, it's been busy, right?
It has been busy, and it's busy in a lot of different sectors. But the one that's been interesting to me is I have a listing that's a mental health counseling practice. And that thing has been getting an awful lot of interest from a lot of different areas. So healthcare, health technology, anything in the health space is really pretty active, but it's shaping up to be a strong time for buyers. And, the baby boom, the silver tsunami is coming. So baby boomers going to retire. So there's going to be an onslaught of sellers as well. So it's a good time to get into the game to sell before all your friends are doing it too.
Yeah. And it's a great point. And, I saw this morning on the news, literally a report that depression is up 4 times over pre-pandemic. So those mental health businesses are pretty busy.
Absolutely.
So that might be a good deal for someone. So get on it.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Hey, we're back and I'm here with Sam Curcio. We're talking about the first quarter 2022 done in the books. And now here we are. It's still pretty hot market out there, right?
Yeah, that's right, Andy. It is actually a pretty hot market, and especially in the food and beverage industry right now. We've had a few nice deals that we're getting a lot of action on. It was really slow throughout 2020 and most of 2021 due to the pandemic and what happened to restaurants. But now that we're kind of coming through it, there's a lot of restaurant owners who are still looking to get out, and there's a number of new buyers coming into the market that are looking to acquire these businesses that survived through that pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to be ahead of the game, right? So people are betting on that. People are going out there. They've lifted the mask mandates here in New York, and people are really excited. So people are busy, right?
Yeah, I mean, these businesses are starting to thrive, and every owner I've talked to is doing month-over-month better. So that's really exciting, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity right now in New York, especially because of New York's culture. There's a lot of after hours and friends meeting up at these restaurants and bars.
All right, thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy.
Hey, we're back and we are talking about the end of the first quarter here in 2022. We're just giving everybody an update of what they see in the world. I do have Kip Hargreaves from Transworld Business Advisors of Southeast Mass. Used to be in the
exhibit for trade show business, custom exhibits. Yes.
Right. So that took a hit in 2020, right?
It came to a complete stop for pretty much 18 to 20 months. Yeah. And then it's slowly coming back right now, but it was a terrible hit. All events worldwide were stopped, period. So,
right. Here we are in 2022. We had the first quarter. And what are you seeing out there as far as activity, as far as people wanting to buy and sell?
I see that there's a tremendous amount of buyers out there. There really is. Almost every listing we get gets a lot of people inquiring about it, regardless of whether it's a restaurant, it's a waste disposal business, or anything else. And I do think there's a lot of money out there. And they also conversely think that there's a lot of people that after owning a business for 30, 40 years are saying, you know what, I've had enough. This pandemic, knocked me all over the place. And so I've certainly seen that as a trend as well.
Yeah. So it's been a seller's market basically through the pandemic, and there's been less inventory out there. And a lot of people are buying stuff, as you said, but do you see that changing a little bit?
I'm not sure. I would say that I think there's going to be more opportunity for people to sell their business. I think there's going to be more sellers coming forth, but there's not as many buyers. I think right now I feel like the buyers outweigh them 3-1, something like that. So.
Right. And money's still available. So it's going to be a good year, right, for business brokers.
I believe so. And believe it or not, there's a lot of people with a lot of cash, not having to go to the SBA for loans, not having to go to banks for loans, but 600, 700, a lot of people are well heeled, as you say,
Yeah, we've been seeing that too. Kip, thanks for coming in today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
Hey, we're back and we're continuing to talk about the first quarter of 2022 is all done, and we rolled out of a great year in 2021. And it looks like 2022 is going to be great. But I'm here with Aaron Fox of Transworld Business Advisors of Boston, and we're talking about what's going on in the Northeast. And you've seen an uptick, right?
I love what's going on in the Northeast right now. It's absolutely fantastic. We've seen our market really woke up. It was a little interesting in the dynamic that we saw in 2021, where we had a lot of sellers who, very established. They've owned their business for 30 plus years, and they were seeing, they almost seemed nervous that what was going to happen is people were going to look at what happened in 2020. They may have, taken their foot off the gas a little bit, or something happened that affected their sales. And they were afraid that without having that full year of tax returns, that it was going to bring their price down, which we all saw in the market that wasn't the case. But, we're glad to be able to talk to them more now. But they're coming to market with some of these incredible businesses, 30 years of operating history, fantastic revenues, fantastic profits. And they're coming into a market that these are going up, and we're seeing, boom. Okay, I want to see how quick can we get an offer in on this. Boom. Let's get to the next steps. This is a great business. This is what I've been looking for. It's incredible. Our lender partners have been absolutely phenomenal with being able to pull together financing on these businesses. The deals are going under contract faster. The market's just hot, and those good businesses are getting the traction that they deserve.
Yeah, that's what we've been hearing a lot today. And so thanks, Aaron. Thanks. Appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you, Andy. Great to see you.
Hey, we're back. We're with Marc Kean. We're asking that same question. Hey, it's the end of the first quarter of 2022. Went through a very busy 2021. But what are you seeing out there in the world? And what do you think is going to happen for the rest of 2022?
Good question, Andy. Thank you very much. So what I'm seeing in the small businesses, the Main Street style businesses in the Boston area, a lot of people are just really under duress. I mean, just getting through this whole COVID period, a lot of businesses, if they're not already in the red, they're having trouble just to figure out, how do I get more staffing? Again, obviously it's a nationwide problem. On the other hand, we're seeing, at least I'm seeing more buyers, people that have left their jobs, part of the Great Resignation or just disgruntled or whatever else, but have a nice 401k, and they said, I want to do my own passion. I want to follow a different path than what I've done for the past 10 or 20 years. So there's a couple of things that I've noted.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for listing of the week.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is listing of the week, and I have Matt Plante from here in Boston, Transworld Business Advisors, and he has a very nice company, and we always love people when they're retiring. Matt, it sounds like a good one.
It's a great one. It's founded 60 years ago, and the owners have done superbly over the years. It's time for them to step back and relax, and they want to find a good buyer. And they used us because they know that we connect good buyers with quality sellers.
Right. And it's an HVAC company?
HVAC company, $2.6 million, growing every year, profitable, SDE around 500,000. So it's a good opportunity for someone to get in the business.
Or do a roll-up, right?
Or do a roll-up. We're getting a lot of inquiries from folks who want to do just that.
Yeah, strategic buyers, right?
Right. Yep.
And probably something like that could get financing.
Financing seems good. All the bankers we spoke with are eager to do something like this because the numbers are consistent, and the company does a real good job. Their books are strong and clean, and they're not hiding anything. They're upfront, honest guys who just are ready to retire.
Wow, it sounds like another good deal for good people is if somebody wants that. Matt, what's the best way to get in touch with you if somebody wants to learn more?
Plante, MPLANTE at tworld.com or 603-738-5217.
Great, Matt. Thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear, or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.